Hi, welcome to the Cardinal Zone. I'm Jack Bear with Jim Dayton, sports editors here at the Daily Cardinal, and we have a nice little week of Badger sports to talk about.
We do indeed. The big news, obviously, yesterday was National Signing Day. The Badgers pulled in a decent recruiting class. We're going to talk about that first. Jack, what are your overall impressions of that recruiting
I
class?
mean, it could be better. It's just really easy to see that because they did have talent that they lost because of Gary Anderson's departure. But what kind of showed, or at least the big trend, was that Paul Chryst seemed to commit more to recruiting in state, which Anderson kind of seemed to ignore. He extended a couple of offers towards guys that Anderson, like I think, offered walk-on or gray shirt
Mm-hmm.
offers. So that's kind of the big philosophical thing. You can't really tell how good of a recruiter Chris is because he only had so much time. Like you look over at Michigan and Florida, and that they have like 10-person classes because those coaches only took over. So, I mean, it's a solid class. Yeah, I'll say that.
Yeah, I believe 14 of this year's recruits were from the state of Wisconsin. So, again, that in state base is really key for keeping the best talent in the state, playing for the Badgers. One of the guys that, as you brought up, that Anderson did not recruit, that I know a little bit about, is Alec Ingold. He was the Gatorade National Player of the Year as a dual threat quarterback at Bayport in Green Bay. He's going to convert to linebacker, and Dave Aranda said he projects him to eventually step into the role that Derek Landish played this past season. So obviously, this kid does not have any experience on the defensive side of the ball, but he's very athletic. And if Aranda's projecting him to be a Derek Landish type player, I think that's very key for a guy that Anderson never really gave much interest to.
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of thing you notice with Anderson, compared to like Partridge and Nash before him, where he really seems to emphasize athleticism towards the ball, and especially in the front seven. So I like that. But yeah, speaking of since Ingold is a dual threat quarterback, this year's quarterback class is pretty intriguing though, because you have Austin Kafensis, who was supposed to be the savior he was going to be the perfect quarterback for Anderson. You just see those gaudy stats in Utah, but then Chris comes on, and well, first of all, people thought, oh, that it makes sense if Kafensis decommitted and went to like Oregon State or some other place with a more dual threat friendly system compared with Chris. But then Chris brings in Alex Hornibrook, or Alex,
Alex Hornibrook, yeah.
well, Alex Hornibrook, and that's a 4-star quarterback right there, and he's definitely more pro style, the lefty. So it's gonna be fun to see because Kafensis seems to have the disadvantage in terms of how he plays, but we saw it with Russell Wilson. Dual threats can work in Chris' system if they have the arm, and Russell had it, and maybe Consensus has it.
Yeah, and Hornibrook was a former Pittsburgh recruit, so whether he gets a little extra look over Cavensis is something to keep an eye on. But the key thing is that obviously last season the quarterback position was Wisconsin's biggest Achilles heel, and now you bring in two very talented freshmen to the class. There's going to be a lot of competition to a position group that really needs it.
Is DJ Gillen's just like sitting somewhere thinking maybe I should transfer?
I
Maybe
mean,
Bart Houston?
I don't think Bart Houston's going to transfer at this point, but don't forget about Gillens, dual threat guy. Again, he'll be a redshirt freshman this year. We'll see if he can compete for the starting job. But these two guys that Wisconsin is bringing in are really guys to keep an eye on.
Yeah. Consensus committed really early, so Wisconsin fans have been very ready to accept him as the next great QB ever since that happened. Like it was like what 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
The biggest key is that the Badgers offensively hauled in a absolutely fantastic recruiting class. They had three big offensive linemen, including John Dietzen, who's out of Seymour, Wisconsin. He was the number one overall recruit in the state. He's coming here. He's already enrolled, actually. Besides him, in the backfield, you've got two really talented running backs in Jordan Stevenson out of Texas and Bradrick Shaw out of Alabama. Shaw was a guy that came on really late and sort of unexpectedly spurned several SEC schools, including Alabama, to come to Madison and play for the Badgers. So it looks like the running game is going to be outstanding for several years to come.
yeah. We hear talk. People like to joke, "Oh, with that offensive line, that system, how are you a running back recruit and not thinking Wisconsin will work great for me?" And Shaw's commitment is kind of the pretty much the proof of that idea. And you also got Arrington Farrar, who was one of those guys who committed National Signing Day. Aranda just seems over the moon about this kid, and that, I mean, given the Badgers' lack of depth at safety, that could be a freshman starter right there.
Mm-hmm. Farrar really, and he's a 4-star guy. Had offered to Notre Dame, and chose Wisconsin over the Irish, but Farrar kind of saved the class because this was a class that lost 12 decommitments, 11 of which came after the coaching change, and of those 12 decommitments, 9 of them came on defense. This is really a aspect of the team that got gashed. But having Farrar come in, it's not as big of a loss as it possibly could have been.
Yeah, well, going forward, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how Chryst performs, especially out of state, which seemed to be Anderson's thing with recruiting. He wanted to get into Florida, get into Texas, and get people from there. Whereas Chryst is much more of an in-state specialist. Chryst was able to keep a lot of the out-of-state kids from this class, but we'll see what he can do as an original recruiter from there.
Mm-hmm. It's really too early to tell whether Chryst can establish a national recruiting base. There's a lot of doubts about that when he came in to Wisconsin, but perhaps having a program that has more resources than Pittsburgh, maybe he can alleviate those concerns and build that base.
And you know what? Maybe recruiting doesn't even matter because you have that 538 article where it basically concluded over the last 5 years, Wisconsin is the single best school in the country in terms of outperforming their recruiting rankings. So, this seems like a solid class, but we've learned, J.J. Watt's tweeting out, don't care about recruiting rankings. A 2-star recruit's not pretty much the best player in football, so We'll see.
It's by far, in that article, Wisconsin was way ahead of the pack. Everybody else, Wisconsin, just all their recruits seem to outperform their incoming rankings, which really is a testament to the coaching staff in being able to develop these guys, even if they aren't necessarily blue chip prospects coming out of high school.
Yeah. All right, well, moving on, we got a pretty good basketball team on a pretty good tear as of late.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, they could probably bathe in the tears of Iowa right now. Those games were just brutal. Like, that was offense porn to be pretty much.
This is just such a wildly efficient basketball team. They can beat you down low. They can beat you with shooting. The backcourt depth that was already a bit of a concern prior to the Jackson injury and became even more pronounced after the Jackson injury doesn't seem to be affecting the team as bad as some people may have thought it would.
Yeah, but you mentioned they were able to score in so many different ways. SB Nation had a great article today on just what a monster Wisconsin's offense is when you consider efficiency. They have Synergy Sports provided a points per play way of how an offense can score. So spotting up, posting up, isolation. I'm just going to read off the type of scoring in Wisconsin's percentile compared to the rest of the country. Spotting up, they are 69th percentile. That is their worst percentile in all of these. Post up, 99. Isolation, 97. Pick and roll ball handler, 100. Transition, 99. Cutting, 96. Offensive rebounds and putbacks, 88th. Pick and roll with the roll man, 95. And then handoff ball, 99th percentile. That's 4 different ways of scoring that the Badgers are better than literally 99% of the country in. It's just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you've got so many different talented offensive players on this team. Kaminsky is by far the best all-around player, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's leading Ken Pomeroy's Player of the Year rankings, which really emphasizes efficiency.
He's definitely a Naismith and Wooden Award Player of the Year candidate, and if somebody is going to take those awards away from him, I'd like to see who it would be.
Jaleel Okafor.
Yeah, Okafor. But on the other hand, the rest of the team, Nigel Hayes, great mid-range shooter, great post-up moves. Josh Gosser can generate a lot of open shots because he plays off the ball so well. Decker's biggest asset is on cuts and driving to the basket. And Koenig is just one hell of a floor general out there.
Yeah, Mr. Koenig, man, he's had 4 turnovers since taking over the starting spot. I think with playing more than 30 minutes in every game. if this is what the Wisconsin offense is going to like with Koenig running it next year, maybe losing Kaminsky and Decker wouldn't be too horrible. I mean, it's going to be bad, but it's not like they're going to be not ranked. This team's going to be good if you have Hayes and Koenig running the show.
Yeah, Koenig is going to have, even when Jackson comes back, even if Jackson comes back to the starting lineup, Koenig is going to have a far larger role than he previously had as a backup to Trayvon Jackson. Now, is he going to split reps? Is he going to start over Jackson? Regardless, he's going to be heavily involved in Wisconsin's offense all the way through tournament time.
Yeah. However, we have to do a little devil's advocate here because, we're saying how amazing Wisconsin is on offense. The defense is not too good. I think KenPom has them at the in the 75 range right now in the country. I mean, that's decent, but compared with all the other top 10 teams out there, most of them are in top 50 in both sides of the ball. And the last few games they've played have really been a testament to that because they have, the words murder, death, kill are thrown around a lot these days, but what they did to Indiana, Iowa, that's just, I'd say it qualifies. So, you have them scoring 1.4 points per possession in Iowa, but even then, the game wasn't totally over. Iowa was still able to score. And then you have Michigan taking them to overtime. That was because Michigan, they were crashing the boards. They were scoring well. And then you have Indiana. I mean, that game should have been over 5 minutes in the halftime, but we had that 1 or 2 minute period where wait, is it actually mathematically possible for Indiana to get back in this? Obviously, it turned out not to be, but even then, that still showed some weakness. And Iowa and Indiana, those are really good offensive teams as of late, But at the same time, you have to worry, is losing Trayvon, are we kind of underestimating Trayvon's defense? We're saying Koenig has been so good because I can't really pull out a stat for this, but I really feel Trayvon was the stronger defender, and we're not seeing it so much with Koenig. I mean, I still feel Koenig might be a net positive because the offense has been such a machine, but we'll have to see how the defense could hurt him because that when you're playing D'Angelo Russell or Melo Trimble, what happens?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This season has shown it's kind of flipped the script. I mean, the prototypical Bo Ryan team has always been defense first, and the offense. It's a stereotype. Under Bo Ryan, the offense would score 45 points a game. That's not the case this year. This is a wildly efficient offensive team, and the defense is just not exactly up to par. That being said, is the defense bad? No, but it has its holes, and those could, be troublesome come tournament time.
Yeah, it seems like it's been a bit of a trend where, the other teams, if they have a star guard, he's probably going to have the game of his life. We saw that with, Tyus Jones and Duke, Georgetown's guy who dropped, 30 on the Badgers. That seems to happen a lot, and, it's probably not a coincidence, So we'll see, and that's why, D'Angelo Russell in particular scares me so much, but, they still have to outscore that Badger offense, so... Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, really, the Badgers, barring disaster, are going to win the Big Ten.
Yeah,
I feel that's safe to say now.
I think it's pretty safe to say. They've got a 2-game lead. Their one loss was a complete anomaly against Rutgers.
Yeah, it's not like that's going to bite them in the ass when it comes to a tiebreaker for the Big Ten.
But I just don't foresee them squandering a 2-game lead. Halfway through the conference season, but I really don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to look at the Big Ten and think, okay, who can beat them, or who has a decent chance of beating them, and are there enough teams to give you worry? They're only playing Ohio State once. They're only playing Maryland once. I think they're only playing Michigan State once.
Plus, Trimble has gone. He's had a rough stretch here, so.
Yeah. Blame Matt Borkus from Grantland there, who called Melo Trimble, I'm quoting here, the best player on the best team in the Big Ten.
Mistake.
He was referring to Maryland. That was, yes, a mistake.
Mistake.
Colossal
mistake.
Anyone who's ever watched Scrubs, that opera singer? Mistake. Yeah, I went there.
That was good. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very proud of my pipes.
Yeah, I think you got a recording contract after this one.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk with multimedia editor. Is he giving me the thumbs up? He's giving me the thumbs up. Awesome.
He's got it.
All right. And since, we've obviously kind of milked basketball for what we're going to get, since we're talking about my opera skills, we'll bring in Lauren Cox here, very skilled women's hockey writer, talk about what's been a pretty good team for the Badgers lately.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. The women's hockey team is really playing well. You know, they kind of had a rough stretch in early January and into 2015 where, you know, they faced some tough teams, especially Minnesota gave them some trouble, but they're really getting back on track now, and they're riding all this momentum into the postseason coming up here.
And what can you tell us about this Minnesota-Duluth series coming up? Is this a matchup that the Badgers should handle easily, or could this be troublesome?
Well, you know, Minnesota-Duluth's been playing pretty well too, but, you know, when they faced earlier this season, the Badgers didn't have a whole lot of trouble with them, and now Minnesota-Duluth announced that their coach isn't returning next season, so there's a lot of sort of discontent there and some awkwardness and uncomfortable interaction between the team and the school, and so you have to wonder how much of a distraction that is for their team. And, you know, when you have a team like the Badgers who come in and just seem to really dominate when they're playing well, they might just be too much for Minnesota Duluth.
If I remember your preview touching on this, I mean, how good was this coach at Minnesota Duluth? I mean, I feel like we should explain this because this was amazing.
She's considered arguably one of the greatest coaches in college women's hockey history. She's been there for 16 years, and she's really built them into one of the best powerhouse schools in the country. I mean, it's a reason why the Badgers Conference is one of the best in the league. She's taken them to, I think, 5 national championships, and she's currently the winningest coach in college hockey right now.
That's just amazing. I mean, imagine if like Duke cut Coach K because of budget cuts, and they're doing that with women's hockey. Like, you just have to wonder, like, is that a state of women's hockey? Has Minnesota Duluth something wrong with their finances? Because that's the best coach in the sport, and you're saying, nah, too expensive.
Yeah, you know, I did some looking in on this, and apparently there's some really gray areas about this. The school kind of came out and said that they can't continue to pay this staff at the current rate, but then people are considering that to be weird because they're paying the men's team, and the men's coach is making quite a bit more than she is.
And Title IX is a thing.
And Title IX is a thing. So there's a lot of questions about how the school values women's sports and just women in general, and kind of the difference in the pay grade between the men's team and the women's team, even though the women's team has been wildly successful over the last decade plus.
That'd be a really interesting investigation, because that would, if the way you frame that, where the men's team is keeping their staff and the women's team is being deemed too expensive, even though they're one of the best in the country, that would be just egregious. It would be inexcusable.
It's kind of an awkward situation because the coach, Shannon Jones, I believe, she has kind of come out and made these statements about just openly pretty much attacking the school, saying, you know, this is about women's rights and this is about my program not being valued as much as the men's program. And she's really taking a very strong gender stance on this. And it's kind of making it an uncomfortable situation for the school, and certainly an uncomfortable situation for her team that is kind of rallying around her at this point and really trying to finish out their last year with their coach on top.
Now, what's the outlook for the rest of the Badgers regular season?
They still have to play Ohio State one more time, and I believe the other series is against Bemidji State. How do you pronounce that? Bemidji State.
D is silent.
The D is silent. Okay. And the Badgers haven't had too much issues with either of those two teams, and it's very likely the Badgers could win out the remainder of their season. They're really playing well, especially freshman Annie Pankowski has come out and really established herself as the top freshman player in the nation, arguably. I mean, she leads the conference in goals scored. She's the second leading freshman. Sorry, she leads the conference freshman in goals scored, and she's second in total points scored. And a number of other Badgers are right up there, up top. I mean, she's really going to be a mainstay for this team coming up in the future. And
nice,
the coach is really proud of her.
How important have Pankowski and then fellow freshman Emily Clark been for Wisconsin lately?
You know, Clark and Pankowski are both in the top 20 in the conference in points scored this year, with Clark sitting at 17 and Pankowski sitting at tied for 6th. And they're really doing a good job of kind of supplementing what they're going to lose with the senior class, considering girls like Carly Sylvester and Brittany Ammerman and others like Blair Turnbull, who are all on their way out this season. They're going to need Pankowski and Clark to really take over for those girls and lead the team in the future.
Would you say a national championship would be a reasonable goal for this team? You know, do you think they're contenders?
You know, I would say it's a goal. I don't know how much you can expect. I mean, certainly it's hard to expect a team to win a national championship every year, but this is definitely a team that can compete and go far in the tournament. And I think if they can continue to stay hot and really harness some of what they were doing earlier this season and continue to play solid, I think they can really go the distance.
All right, then.
All right, thanks a lot for joining us, Lauren. To wrap up our podcast, we want to highlight the best story of the week, according to Jack and myself. We're going to go back to Jake Powers' feature that ran in last week's paper on James White, sort of profiling his journey from Wisconsin into the pros and his experience in the Super Bowl. Now he's a Super Bowl champion in his rookie season.
Yeah, no, I have a really strong memory. I was doing the draft write-ups for all the Badgers last year, and I just opened up James White's page, and he is one of the best running backs in not just Badgers history, but Big Ten history. It's just amazing. He retired as the Badgers all-time leader in he never retired. He graduated as the Badgers all-time leader in yards per carry. I mean, that's obviously been shattered by Melvin Gordon, but he was an amazing running back that was just overshadowed by amazinger running backs.
Yeah.
But he has that ring now. Good for him.
White really doesn't get the respect he deserves because you think about it, he was his sophomore year, he's with John Clay and Monte Ball. His junior year, he's with Monte
I think
Ball.
his freshman year he was with Clay and Ball.
I think he was still.
No, I think it was the Ball White show for 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, you're right. 2010, he was with Clay and Ball. Yep. 2011, he was with Ball. 2012, he was with Ball. And in 2013, his final year with the Badgers, his senior year, he's with Melvin Gordon, obviously, who, despite being White's backup, outrushed him. And honestly, this actually goes back to high school because current Cincinnati Bengals running back Giovanni Bernard shared touches in the backfield with James White at St. Thomas Aquinas in Florida. So he's kind of used to it.
Yeah, White's saying he's always been that really, really good backup, and I guess that really works when he's at the Patriots, who are one of the most infamous teams at using the running back by committee. So we'll see if he gets more touches. Like, he didn't even see the field in the Super Bowl.
No, he wasn't active.
Yeah, I mean, we have to, Super Bowl ring's a Super Bowl ring, but they didn't need him. But, going forward, he could see more time with the Patriots. Belichick might work him in. But, yeah.
Definitely check out Jake's story. It's one of the better ones we've had this year. So it's a must read.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. I'm Jack.
And I'm Jim, signing off.
Yeah.